Cosmo D is one of the most unique indie game developers out there right now. He's a musician turned game designer who captured my and a lot of people's attention with his short free-to-play game Off-Peak, which blended high-quality music into a dreamy and mysterious setting with lots of rich visuals and something new around every corner. Although even at the time it came across as more of a proof of concept than a final product, so it was no surprise when the Norwood Suite came along, which was honestly fantastic full-length voyage into this same funky world he's building over these games. There were numerous improvements, mostly simple things like a larger map, more characters, and a greater attention to detail, but also there was fresher music, more emphasis on world building, and a greater mystery and story. It was one of my favourite games of that year, so I was pretty hyped when this new title was announced. And I'm happy to report that Tales from Off-Peak City Volume 1 is yet another great stride for Cosmo D as a game creator. Let's take a look. Dropped off into a partially flooded town, we're given the task of stealing a saxophone from a local jazz musician turned pizzeria owner. Along the way, we become involved in the intertwining stories of its citizens and uncover the larger mysteries of this peculiar world. First and foremost, there's a much greater emphasis on gameplay than before. The Norwood Suite could definitely be criticised on that front, as what you actually do could pretty much just be boiled down to fetch quests, reading dialogue, and the odd button press. Oh, and you make a sandwich at one point. Everything has been upgraded here, and I'm not just talking about making pizzas now instead of sandwiches. There's a camera, complete with shutter and aperture settings, as well as different kinds of film you can collect for it over the game world. Take a photo and you can hang it up in the pizza place, which you end up working in. Making the pizzas is pretty satisfying, and you can keep collecting new ingredients for your workstation throughout the journey. When you go and deliver them to nearby homes, the characters actually comment on how you've put them together. This isn't just a minigame, by the way. The story progresses along with your orders, letting you further explore the neighbourhood, uncover the grander conspiracy plot, and opening up new areas and pathways. You know, it's difficult to say what makes these games appealing. They're by no means perfect. There's a continual issue with objects having a lack of cohesion, just sort of dropped in, clipping into one another, and having inconsistent lighting. There's also a lot of poor textures and an overall lack of polish in most places, although I will say there is a marked improvement on these things over the Norwood Suite. It's almost become the whole style of the world as well, so it is harder to pin this down as a genuine criticism. One of the most endearing aspects is the way the dialogue is done. There's just something slightly off about how people talk, though it fits the world perfectly with its dreamy logic. The dialogue leads the narrative, but the jazzy style leads the experience, both through visuals and music. You can see that there's always a lot of colour and curious things to look at, but the music is just as important in setting the scene. There are a handful of great tracks here, though they're not quite as distinctive and memorable as the Norwood Suite. There's also a couple that are really repetitive in certain areas, which is strange to see from a developer that's done this better before. Perhaps the soundtrack was less of a priority in this one. It can feel like it sometimes, although I'd implore him to never let that side of things drop in quality. Sound is so important in this world. When I think of my Cosmo D fandom, I liken it to the cult followings that exist around indie filmmakers and other artists. And just like with those cult followings, it's a pleasure to discover visuals, motifs and characters that link the art together. The Blue Moose energy drinks, dystopian overtones, jazz music, modern art and strange books, just to name a few. There's quite exciting links to the Norwood Suite here as well, making it far more of a sequel than I had first imagined. This world is just growing and I can't wait to see more of it. Calling it Volume 1 implies these are going to be released faster and with an ongoing story, which I'm absolutely up for. It's a great little game as is anyway. It's not out on Steam yet, but you can grab it on the Humble Bundle if you really can't wait like me. Why it's being released like this, I really have no idea, but hey, this is also a glowing recommendation for the Norwood Suite, which you can easily grab on Steam right now. I talk more about Cosmo D's first game, Off Peak, in the left-hand video, so check that out if you're interested. Take care everyone. Peace.